Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. It's time to have a look at the ground vehicles past the developers for good old July of 2024. There's a bunch of really cool ones here, and I think this might be one of my favorites past the developers of this year so far. Hopefully you enjoy it too. Let's have a look. The first one is about the T100, and also the post talks about how there's been several T100s in different countries, which is very true. But this one is the T100 for America. Specifically the MGMC T100, the Stinger. This SPAA was a prototype designed by the US from 1948 to 51 and was finished in September of 51. The vehicle itself was based on the T-37 light tank hull, and it mounted a turret which held 4 T-17E5 60 cals machine guns, basically 15.2 by 114 millimeters, which are super weird calibers. These MGs, as some may know, were based on reverse-engineered, captured German MG151s, and the MGMC T100 was one of the very first SPAAs to utilize radar. Said radar appears to be the ANGPG-1, with the tracker radar, the T9. So the vehicle itself will be another one of these vehicles that could fit in those areas for America, where they don't really have any kind of AAs. The next one is a Panther tank, but for Britain. It's called the Deserter, and it's a Panther G. Britain operated 2 captured Panthers during World War II, the well-known Cuckoo, and the lesser-known, but more appropriately named, Deserter. The story of this vehicle begins in Italy, 1944. Allied troops were slowly advancing northwards, a hellish campaign against well-prepared German defensive lines. And in German service, the specific Panther, a G variant, was part of the Panzer Regiment 4 of the 26th Panzer Division. In October 1944, during fighting at the River Serio, Canadian infantry captured this vehicle intact. Once combat was over, the Canadians passed the tank onto their armoured support, which was the British 21st Tank Brigade. The tank was then issued to one of the brigade units, the 140th Royal Armoured Corps. Allied symbols were marked on the tank, including a yellow triangle symbolizing A Squadron, as well as the turret number 10 and the badge of the 21st Armoured Brigade. Along with these markings, the tank was also given a name, Deserter. The tank saw combat in British use and is recorded to have bombarded a German observation post on the 11th of November 1944. However, it was also noted that the tank was too wide to cross the mobile British Bailey bridges, so its use in the Italian campaign was inevitably limited. Soon after, the tank was withdrawn from the front line and underwent extensive testing to ascertain its performance compared to its Allied counterparts. Nothing is recorded of the final fate of the Deserter, but it was likely either blasted to pieces during ballistic testing or scrapped for its materials. For Japan, we have a Type 10, but with a Dozer. One of the funny things about Japan is in the tech tree you have like the standard vehicles like the TKX, the Type 10 and the Type 90, and then you have the variants which have Dozers, because they're trying to basically increase the number of vehicles of MBTs at those high tiers. So this suggestion is literally just about a Type 10 with a Dozer. It even goes through all of the different sightings of a Type 10 with a Dozer and the kind of different variants of it, but let's be honest, it's just a Type 10 with a Dozer. China gets a ridiculous vehicle, the JRVG-1. This is one of China's newest wheeled SPAAG systems, seemingly intended for the export market. It was designed to be a middle ground between the short-range dual 35mm systems and the long-range SAM systems. The JRVG-1 story begins with the Russian AK-176 automatic 76mm naval cannon, which entered service in 1979. The AK-176 was a medium-caliber autocannon, designed for installation onto frigates and corvettes, with a maximum fire rate of 120 RPM. China was intrigued by this weapon, and began development on a domestic copy in 2000, being completed only 3 years later in 2003. This copy was designated the PJ-26 and subsequently mounted onto the Type 054A class frigate and also the 056 class corvette. It wasn't long before the system was adapted for use on a mobile land-based platform. In 2016, the SA-2 SPAG was shown off at the Zhuhai Air Show. This SPAG was based on a 6x6 truck and featured a significantly scaled down turret, which was equipped with a relatively simple photoelectric fire control system. No radar was installed, limiting the vehicle's anti-air capabilities. This system was aimed primarily toward the export market, however, no buyers came forward. As such, work on an improved version began. The improved design was officially revealed at the 2018 Zhuhai Air Show under the name of the JRVG-1. This new SPAG featured an extraordinary 10x10 configuration and a new turret, which while still significantly downscaled from the original PJ-26 turret, was much longer and more conventional looking. The hull of the JRVG-1 was based off of the ZBL-08 hull, modified to include a fifth axle, but due to the increased length and extra weight, the JRVG-1 did not inherit amphibious capabilities. When compared to the SA-2, the JRVG-1 is superior in every way except for profile size. The JRVG-1 has an improved photoelectric fire control system and is equipped with a large radar, allowing the vehicle to detect tracked targets before quickly removing them with airburst rounds. As of yet, no customers have made themselves known. For Italy, we have the B1 Cenaturo DRACO. This is an Italian multi-role platform developed by the Italian company Otto from the B1 Centauro. Its development started back in the 2000s, when the Italian company Otto Melara, after their experience with the automatic SPAG, started a new project for a new turret for the B1 Centauro, and it was based on the 76-62mm Super Rapido cannon. It was presented for the first time in 2011 at an Italian military parade. Comparing to the automatic, the Draco featured new optics as well as new rounds, such as the 76mm infrared guided dart, an anti-aircraft / anti-missile high-velocity projectile with a range superior to 10 km, as well as the Vulcano 76mm, a smaller version of the Vulcano guided round for the 127mm autocannon with a 40 km range. It also featured the Scudo APS, which is an Italian AP that, like the Draco, was never finished. Unfortunately, like the automatic, the Draco suffered the same fate and was never chosen by the army. Even though the company has made many proposals for it with different systems and chassis, the Italian army has never made an order. The only prototype built was partially completed, since the hull was completed, but the turret was partially a mock-up. Some parts were made, but the turret wasn't operational. Regardless, the turret was tested on a test rig previously used for the Palmeria, and also other tanks made by Otto. The fate of the prototype, though, is unknown. The French get the EBRC Jaguar. France has a rich history of using high-mobility reconnaissance vehicles. Most notably, these vehicles include the RC-90 Sagae, the AMX-10RC, and the VAB Mephisto. These all entered service in the late 70s and early 90s, and as such, in the modern era, these vehicles have become obsolete. Discussions on a new vehicle, which would become the EBRC Jaguar, began in 2004. Despite this, it was not until 2014 that a final decision was made to begin construction on this new vehicle, which would form a part of the new Scorpion program, which was France's attempt to transform its army into a modern fighting force. At this time, the model unveiled, which was called the Jaguar, this was to fill one of the 5 vehicle requirements laid out by the Scorpion program: the role of the engine blinded reconnaissance de combat, or armored reconnaissance and combat vehicle. The other roles being VBAE, VBCI, VBMR, and the Leclerc. As such, the EBRC Jaguar will replace the aforementioned ERC-90 Sagae, the AMX-10RC, and the VAB Mephisto in their roles. The Jaguar entered service in early 2022, and to this day is used by both the Armée de Terre and also the French Foreign Legion. Its combat weight is 24.7 tons, ensures that it can be rapidly deployed abroad, and also the Jaguar's array of sensors and firepower enable it to be effective in both urban and open environments, making it a very versatile vehicle. In the future, the EBRC Jaguar will be equipped with France's under-development Diamond hard-kill active protection system, which is quite fun. The firepower of this thing is also quite fun. The main armament is a 40 CTAS autocannon, the secondary is the Acheron MP ATGMs, and an auxiliary armament of the Hornet SRCWS with the 77.62mm FNH Mag 58. The CTAS-40 autocannon was developed by CTA International, which was a joint venture between Britain's BAE Systems and France's Nexter system. Basically, it's a 40mm with a very good set of depression and elevation. It can fire up to 200 rounds per minute, and also has a 63 ready rack with 120 stored in the turret. It also has every type of ammunition known to man, so generally you'll have a pretty good time. The ATGMs, the Acheron MP ATGMs, it is a pop-up missile launcher which fires them, and is developed by MDBA. In footage released by the Ministry des Armées, it can be seen that these ATGMs are able to destroy targets by indirect fire at distances of over 5,000 meters. Whilst there's no information on the explosive mass of the warhead, it is generally considered to be on par with that of the Spike LR2. The Acheron MPs have INS, or Inertial Navigation Systems. This would allow the missile to go to the last known position in a case locked against the target is lost. One of the features of the EBRC Jaguar is that a UAV is also able to designate a target to the vehicle. Then the crew of the Jaguar is able to destroy the designated target using the Acheron MP, which is kind of crazy. Also, the commander and the gunner are able to optically guide the ATGM as well, using their Paseo sensors too. For Sweden, we have the TRIDON. By the end of 1994, AB Bofors were again investigating the possibility of mounting a L70 gun on a self-propelled platform. At the time, the Armoured Trinity concept was still in being, but the Swedish Army and Navy, the latter including the Coast Artillery Arm, retained large numbers of towed L70 guns, with potentially long service lives still before them, while the prospect of personnel shortages loomed ahead. By placing those guns, which were regarded as having a low mobility rating, on some form of relatively inexpensive self-propelled carriage, it seemed that fewer personnel would be required, while the L70 guns' useful lives could be extended. At the same time, cross-country mobility could be considered, enhanced, and in and out of action times could be significantly reduced. After some investigations, there arose the possibility of mounting the gun on a modified Volvo 6x6 articulated chassis on the type already in widespread and trouble-free service on numerous construction sites and other such commercial projects. By the end of 1994, a L70 gun and a Volvo VME 8265B chassis had been brought together to become what could be described as a technology demonstrator, and by July 1995, preliminary firing trials to test the viability of the concept in both the ground-to-ground and also ground-to-air firing modes had been completed. Mobility trials included driving the vehicle through snow 1 meter deep, and by the end of 1995, a specially modified L70 gun with electrically powered traverse and elevation controls, the EL4070, had been placed on another VME 825B chassis for further trials. The revised chassis being more fully equipped for the air defense role and with extra armored protection applied to the driver and operator cabs, this version became known as the TRIDON. The TRIDON was able to demonstrate that its concept had considerable promise, especially following the demise of Armoured Trinity. 4 different fire control and other equipment standards were forecast, the overall approach being modular so that individual user requirements could be easily met. The intention was that each vehicle and gun combination would be capable of acting as an autonomous air defense unit for prolonged periods, using the latest PFHE and 3P ammunition to improve the overall air defense performance. The simplest proposed version was TRIDON 1, a relatively low-cost, fair-weather system with a few frills. TRIDON 2 would have extras such as a laser rangefinder and add-on units, including a proximity fuse programmer, a muzzle velocity radar, and also possibly a local search radar on the system control cabin roof. More optronic target sensors would be involved with TRIDON 3, including a fully integrated combat control system, while TRIDON 4 would have a full all-weather system suite virtually to Trinity standards, the TRIDON 4 gun having a cyclic firing rate of 330 RPM and an optional 101 round magazine. All 4 TRIDON models were to be operated by a crew of 5, including the driver. At the front were the driver and the target designator, the latter dismounting to set up and connect his target designator sight. The rest of the crew, the commander, target plotter, and also gunner, would travel and work in an air-conditioned cab located on the rear articulated unit behind the driver's cab. No crew member needed to be on the gun in action, as the gun magazine could contain 43 rounds, sufficient for 8 to 12 engagements. The articulated rear unit had space to carry more ammunition in lockers. Power for all operations could be provided by an auxiliary power unit when the main vehicle engine had been switched off. TRIDON seemed to offer much, but once again, the entire project came to an end, with only prototypes being tested. As the Cold War years receded and defense budgets shrank, the need for a weapon concept along the lines of TRIDON faded away. However, the Volvo articulated carrier idea, operated to a Volvo A30D, survived in the form of the BAE Systems project Archer, self-propelled 155mm artillery system, involving a L52 version of the Bofors FH-77B howitzer. For Israel, we have the Cenaturo Ro'em, which means thunderous or thundering, a fantastic name. Basically, the story starts with the Cenaturo M68. This was a towed 155mm L33 artillery piece manufactured by Cenaturo Systems and based on previous designs by the Finnish company Tampella, of which Cenaturo was a subsidiary. The first prototype for the gun was evaluated by the IDF in 1968, showing a satisfactory performance. Israeli production of the M68 began shortly after in 1970, and in 1975, the M71 and L39 variant of the howitzer began production. In the late 60s, Cenaturo began development of a self-propelled howitzer based on the M4A3 EZ8 chassis. The vehicle combined the hull of a Sherman with the recently introduced M68 howitzer. The turret was replaced with a fixed superstructure around the gun, and the power plant was upgraded with a more powerful Cummins diesel engine. The tank then entered service with the IAF in 1973 and was immediately used in combat in 1973 in the Yom Kippur War alongside the M109. The Ro'em saw combat again in the 1982 Lebanon War. Between 150 and 200 units were constructed, and the vehicle was soon relegated to the reserve role as the numbers of M109s in service with the IAF grew. The Cenaturo L33 features the M68 howitzer with a caliber of 155mm. The gun could fire the M107HE projectile with a maximum velocity of 725 meters per second, which is quite nice. The gun mounts provide 30 degrees of horizontal traverse and the elevation range of -4 to +52. Both elevation and also the traverse were manual. The cradle mounts, the hydropneumatic recuperator, a hydraulic dampener, and also a pneumatic rammer allowed reloads at angles of elevation. The barrel features a single baffle muzzle brake, a bore evacuator, and also a travel lock. The maximum fire rate of the vehicle is reported as 6 RPM, but the sustained fire rate was only 2 RPM. The vehicle, once again, based on a Sherman, but it at least had access to the 460 horsepower Cummins VT8 by diesel, which would be quite nice. As always, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank GMG Smiley, CD Beans, Chieftain Mike, EMN3 Galaxy, Tulio Pontecorvo, Brendan Quinn, Carrion Crow, Gus Irenicus, Pyman, Wartinder, Teddy, Daniel Stanton, Martinez, B. Young, Ozzy Panzer, Alan Hacker, Liam Shear, Opium Prime, Lafouche, Sem Aslan, Uncle Bean, and Derek R. for supporting the channel.